It's great having RGB fans in your PC, but do your fans sound like this? Well, if that sounds like you, you've got multiple options open to you. You can have a look at getting an AIO cooler, or you can look at getting premium fans, rubber mounts. Sometimes these fans will use specialized magnets to make them run quieter. But in our case, if you're on a budget, you have budget fans installed in your case. Now in this case, I've got multiple Molex connectors strapped together, and it really isn't an optimum solution. The other thing as well is the fans run really fast and there's no way to reduce the speed. So in this solution I'll show you how you can reduce the speed. Really the only way you can do this is changing it from the 12 volt rail to the 5 volt rail on the Molex connector. Now the first job is to cut off the old Molex connectors, and what I like to do is I like to cut the positive off first and leave a negative connected. That way you can guarantee that you're not going to create a short when you start soldering these wires together. So what you want to do is cut all of the positive connectors off, leaving the negatives on. Now once you've done that and you've stripped off the insulation at the end of the wires, the next thing is you want to twist these together. The correct way and the actual way of actually soldering wires together is you're supposed to do them side by side, and that gives you the strongest bond. However, I don't actually have a holder to hold these wires in place for me, so I'm twisting them together in this case. And in many cases I've done this many times before, and I'm sure many other people have, and actually the solder connection has been strong enough. Once you've twisted them together, you want to use some flux to make sure that the solder flows into the connection nicely, all into the little gaps and crevices, and gives you a nice solid connection. So I have some brush on flux here, and as you can see, unfortunately I had some of the recording off camera just on the top there. But I have twisted the wires together. Once you've got them wide twisted together, then you want to make sure that you've also got your heat shrink already pre-cut and put over the wire, because once they're soldered together, there's no way to get that heat shrink on there. You brush on your flux onto the connector. Then you want to grab your solder. My particular solder is unleaded, and I'm trying to do this one-handed, holding all the wires together. It's a little bit tricky to keep everything in place. And essentially what you want to do is you want to get a good soldering iron. So the soldering iron I have goes up to 400 degrees, and it makes soldering super easy. If you have a rubbish soldering iron, it makes this really difficult. And my soldering iron also has a heat gun on there. So once it's soldered, you want to push your heat shrink over the connection point, and you just want to heat shrink that all together. Once you've done that, you want to do the same thing with the negative connector, and strip all the wires, twist them together and solder them and heat shrink. Finally, once you've done that, then you're not going to need the 12 volt rail or the negative, unless of course you're going to be connecting this Molex connector to something else. Probably wouldn't recommend it, but if you are, you can keep them in place. But what I've done is I use some tweezers to pull out the old connectors, just so that there's only 5 volt or negative for the 5 volt connected, and that's all. And that should give you much quieter fans. The other thing you can do is also use rubber grommets, and that will also help reduce the noise from your fan. So here's a link for where you can see I've used this technique, and please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.